Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Newly elected Portland Mayor Keith Wilson ran on a campaign of ending unsheltered homelessness in our city. But how does this plan actually play out for those working with our city's homeless population every day? And will it actually address our ongoing homelessness crisis? So today on CityCast Portland, we're checking in with Scott Kerman, the executive director of the long-standing Old Town Addiction and Homeless Service provider, Blanche Shea House. He's giving us an on-the-ground view of how Mayor Wilson's policies are shaping out 2 months in. It's Tuesday, March 4th. I'm Claudia Meza, and this is what Portland's talking about. We've been wanting to talk to you ever since Mayor Wilson started because, ever since he got into office, Mayor Wilson helped open 200 new overnight shelter beds, and hundreds more are to come. Are you noticing a difference since these openings? Are things getting better in your world at all?
We are definitely noticing a difference in our world, especially because one of the shelters that has opened is the Safes shelter that's operated by the Salvation Army. And that's just down the street from us, just off of Burnside. The Safe shelter is for female identifying clients, and many of the women who are staying at that shelter since it opened are our meal guests. And we've seen a profound improvement in their stability and their well-being as a result.
Oh, that's great.
Immediately. Because the opportunity to enjoy a safe night of rest, just free of the violence and the terror that comes with being outdoors overnight, it's just having a profound effect on people we're serving. I don't think we credit how much of an impact sleep deprivation has on the people who are living unsheltered. And for women that we serve, we've heard from them in the past that they start using methamphetamine just to stay awake at night because they're terrified to fall asleep because of what, can and does happen to them. And then you consider the weather that we've been having in the past month. First, the winter weather, and we did open some emergency shelters during that time. But there are no emergency shelters when we have an atmospheric river and when we have torrential rain and high winds.
Yeah.
I came to work Monday morning before breakfast and everything was soaked.
Yeah.
The people were soaked. The environment was soaked. So what a relief it has been for people to have somewhere to go.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. I know a criticism homeless advocates have shared about Mayor Wilson's plan is that it's a concern that our city will become somehow too reliant on the overnight shelter bed system and then start to stray away from the longer-term housing solutions that have been started years ago. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I believe whenever we take especially a big action, whether it's in our program or in our community, it's incredibly important to consider the unintended consequences or the downstream impacts of the decisions we make and the things we do, because we're dealing with matters of survival for people. These are not academic questions and matters to consider. We need these overnight shelters. We know people who are dying in the night because they have had no place to go. But this effort is not going to be fully successful in a vacuum. We're going to need to be very intentional about opening and supporting 24/7 shelters, long-term transitional programs like we offer in Old Town and at Blanche Shea Farm, how we facilitate transportation so people can get from the shelters to the services they need during the day, including those provided by day centers, and then back to shelters in the evening. So I think it's important that as providers, we work together with the city and make sure that we're not only successful in opening up these overnight shelters that will definitely save lives, but that we're also taking care of everything that we're going to need to complement these shelters if we're going to be successful in the whole.
Yeah, the argument occasionally feels a little like either or when it appears that Mayor Wilson's plan is a yes and. Like, he's very adamant about we have to open up these overnight shelters for unsheltered homelessness, but he also appears to have plans, or at least acknowledges like, yeah, we need a permanent solution and this is not going to be it. This is just like ring the alarm. People are dying, as you're stating. But I know he was been getting a lot of flack because of that. And so it's comforting to hear that a provider who's doing this work day in and day out is just like, no, this is working.
Yeah, I mean, I think the more honest we are about the intentions, the limitations, the consequences, the more successful we will be. Blanchet House is committed to opening up an overnight emergency shelter for women and those who identify female. And we're committed to doing this because, again, we cannot bear the pain that comes from seeing people die, or if not die, be horribly victimized and not do something. But this is not the kind of shelter we do. We do long-term transitional shelter because we believe that is one of the best ways we can help people transition to a better and more independent life. But we want to save lives. Mm-hmm. And if this is something that we can do in the short term to save lives, then we can continue to work on building up what we need to surround those shelters.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like the county or what, but I know our area's leaders at a certain point were just like, we're no longer investing in overnight shelters. We're only investing all of our resources in long-term housing. And it appeared to create a pileup of sorts, just of people in need. Because like you stated, Scott, like you can't just throw someone with mental health issues or with medical issues into a house unsupervised and just go, you're welcome, and walk away.
Yeah.
And then like a year later when you're out of funding going, okay, you got to go now. And I feel like that was like a side effect of permanent housing only solution that we were seeing here in Portland.
Well, I just believe the wider lens we use when trying to solve the challenges and issues that people are experiencing, the better we'll be for it. I mean, we're talking about a collection of individuals, not a monolith. And so not every outcome is going to be successful for every person. Mm-hmm. What we do, and I believe what we do very well, is not successful for every person. That doesn't mean we're a failure. That doesn't mean we should abandon what we're doing. We can help people for whom our program is a good fit. And then we look for other partners to provide other kinds of opportunities that are going to meet those needs.
Right.
When it comes to the overnight shelter, and we're naming this shelter Bethany's Room, that's in memory of a male guest that we have known for a very long time, Bethany Johnson, who was killed in a hit and run last year in the middle of the night, just south of Burnside. Mm-hmm. And Bethany, she was homeless because of a car accident she experienced as an adult that left her with traumatic brain injury. She was college educated. She had a degree in music. She could play 5 instruments. It's just a moral outrage that she died the way she did. I mean, we grieve for Bethany. We grieve for so many people that we've lost over these last 5 years in particular. And we're just done with that. And so we're going to join with the city and join with other providers to save some lives and give people a chance to make progress.
Yeah. All right, well, let's take a quick break here. And when we come back, Scott's thoughts on the controversial next phase of Mayor Wilson's plan to end unsheltered homelessness.
This episode is brought to you by Peacock. The new Peacock original documentary, Matthew Perry, A Hollywood Tragedy, dives deep into the beloved actor's rise to fame and his tragic death. 5 people, including Perry's personal assistant, 2 medical doctors, and an alleged Hollywood drug dealer known as the Ketamine Queen, were charged with conspiracy to illegally provide Perry with the ketamine. Explore the details of the case in this heartbreaking special, streaming now only on Peacock.
This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV Insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
Well, Mayor Wilson's next phase, once he feels there are enough overnight shelter beds online, is to ramp up enforcement of our city's anti-camping law. How do you feel about that? I know in the past you've discussed how traumatizing these sweeps can be for the communities you serve, but he's been very clear with like, all right, once all the beds are up, I don't want to see any kind of camping. Like, how has that discussion gone with you?
Yeah, I believe Mayor Wilson has been very nuanced and delicate about this. I have heard Mayor Wilson acknowledge that overnight shelters are not going to accommodate everyone. But he believes, and I believe, that they will help a majority of people who are unsheltered. And then we can, with great intention and sensibility and with great individuality, address the needs of those for whom a higher degree of care and intervention is required. I don't think that means arrest and incarceration, and I don't believe that's the mayor's intent as well.
So what do you think it means then?
I think it means approaching individuals for whom the overnight shelters don't serve on a by-name basis. I mean, that's what we hope. That's certainly what we're going to advocate for, and understanding that in the meantime, we're going to have to make sure that we have a higher degree of care available for people. And I think that occurs in concert with Governor Kotek's ambition to dramatically improve our mental health and our substance use services in this community. None of this is going to be successful in isolation. The mayor is not going to be successful without assistance and intervention at the state level, certainly at the county level as well. I think we're all expecting there's not going to be much assistance, if any assistance at all, at the federal level. In fact, there are likely going to be actions at the federal level that are going to be working against us. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have to row against the current a little bit. But I think we have to understand there's no silver bullet. And certainly a silver bullet to the challenges we're facing in this community is not sweeping, arresting, and imprisoning people who have no place to go. In almost every case, I would say, through no direct fault of their own.
It's convenient that you brought up Governor Tina Kotek, because I was going to ask you, last time you were on the show, we talked a lot about drug overdoses and the 90-day fentanyl emergency declaration that she made at that time. And I'm curious, did any of that help? Like, how are things now post 90-day fentanyl emergency?
Yeah, Claudia, a year ago, we were, still confronting a wave of overdoses that just required heroic intervention to save lives. And while we're still seeing a high level of acuity with regards to substance use, we're not experiencing the volume of overdoses and interventions as we did a year ago. This is a great relief because the threat of life and the trauma of intervening were extreme. And what do I attribute to this? I believe it's because there's greater awareness and acceptance of how Narcan can save lives. I think the stigma around Narcan and other interventions is much less than before. But the thing is people in the community are just more aware of the impact of fentanyl use. And this is true for not only people who use fentanyl, but also the people around them who don't. Folks on the street look out for one another. They form community. That's one of the reasons sweeps can be so detrimental to making progress, because it disrupts those communities and those ecosystems that are really incredibly balanced and can be very successful. But we're not out of the woods by any means. I mean, just this week, our experiences in the meal program suggest to us that there's a lot of meth and fentanyl use right now. And personally, from what I've seen on the street and in our cafe, I have concerns about what is on the street right now. Because it seems like the substances that we're experiencing right now are particularly debilitating. Mm-hmm. And this is how it goes. It's not a constant. It ebbs and flows. And sometimes, frankly, I just think, boy, there's a really bad stuff. There's just bad stuff on the street right now. that are having a profoundly psychotic effect on people. So we have a lot of work to go. We're still seeing too many overdose deaths in our community.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned possible, federal cuts, but we're not just facing cuts federally. I know both the city and county are facing major budget shortfalls, the county specifically in their homeless service department. And a lot of service organizations like yourselves, they rely on that funding. So how is the Blanchet House holding up? I mean, and we're not even discussing the federal cuts here. It's just the city and the county.
Yes, I mean, as for the county, I mean, we did recently learn that Blanchet House's funding for our day services program has been eliminated in the proposed budget.
Oh,
And so this year, we're receiving $431,000 from the county for our day center program. So those are our meals and all the supportive services that wrap around those meals. And that's not an insignificant amount.
mm-hmm.
But there's no question for us about reducing services. I mean, how can we reduce services at a time when the need for our services is only going to increase and likely as a result, not just of county budget cuts, but what's happening at the federal level. So, what's Blanchet House going to do? We're just going to find a way to make up for that loss of funding. I mean, we have to. As I've been thinking about this, as this news has been settling in for me, I think what is going to linger for us is more the emotional impact than the fiscal impact of this change. Funding for the county, frankly, is validating. It communicates to us that the county values what we do, how we do it, the important role we play in helping our county's most vulnerable and suffering community members. But, I just want to be clear, Claudia, I'm not asking anyone to cry for us. There's a lot of pain to go around, and other organizations are going to experience much more significant impacts than Blanchet House will. So we're committed to not only making sure our services continue to thrive, but we also are committed to supporting our colleague nonprofits and the communities they serve.
Yeah. Well, you brought up your new overnight women's shelter. It's opening later this year, correct?
We're trying to open it as fast as we can, but these are not easy efforts, and we're still exploring what would be the best property.
I brought it up because I'm wondering, does this at all get stalled because of the budget shortfalls and, the lack of federal support, or is the funding for that already secured?
Well, we're raising the money for it.
Okay.
Prior to this year, we were 100% independently funded.
Wow.
We have never relied on public funding for our services. We're grateful for the funding that we've received this year from the county. We're ecstatic that for the first time this year, day centers like us are being recognized as deserving of funding from the county.
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago, nobody really ever uttered the words day center. It just wasn't something that was seen as part of the matrix of care that we have in our community.
It's interesting that 3 years ago, the county wasn't really paying attention to day centers because they're opening one up in St. John's, actually. It's going to be managed by, I believe it's like Do Good Multnomah or a different provider, but it's their center. It's going to be next to their St. John's County Clinic. Now I'm wondering, I don't know if you've heard through the grapevine, like, are they going to continue opening that up, or is that just out now because of their funding shortfalls?
I don't know for sure, Claudia, but I would be very, very surprised if that program was eliminated. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I said day centers were like the Who's in Whoville. We're trying to shout as loud as we could, we are here, we are here, we are here. And we're not in that place anymore. Day centers are part of the Homelessness Response Action Plan. Day centers were part of Governor Kotek's Central City Task Force plan. We know that Mayor Wilson has said that day centers are a critical component of his overnight shelter plan. So, I think we're just going to have to bear through our current budget woes and just make sure that we're supporting these programs to their fullest.
Yeah, well, before we wrap up, are there any opportunities for folks listening to help out?
We have a lot of work to do to help a lot of different people in our community who are struggling. If people want to help Blanchet House, go to our website at blanchethouse.org. Volunteering in our meal service, we believe, is some of the best and most rewarding and impactful volunteer work that you can do. But if that's not your jam, you can help support our supportive services by donating clothing, sack lunches, care kits, and we need money. Like I said, we're almost 100% independently funded. When the new fiscal year turns around on July 1st, we'll be back to 100% independently funded. So dollars help us do what we do, but there's lots of ways that you can get involved.
Well, Scott, as usual, thank you so much for taking the time from your busy schedule and sitting down with us and just giving us an update. We've had you on a few times just to let us know what's going on.
I love having this conversation with you. And, I think we do this around this time every year. And so if not before, I hope to talk to you again next February.
Oh, it's yearly? Oh, no, we got to fix that. All right. Well, thank you, Scott.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all for today here on CityCast Portland. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please share it with a friend, rate or leave us a review. It really does help us out. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more from around the city. Until then, see you at Slim's.